Hey guys, Colton here. We'll get back to the podcast in just 1 minute. I just wanted to let you know that my new book, 24 Rules of Masculinity, is officially out. If you've been resonating with the topics we've hit on in this podcast, discipline, purpose, identity, what it means to be a man today, this book was built for you. It's a straight talking guide packed with hard lessons, biblical principles, and the kind of clarity that I think a lot of us are starving for. So whether you're just starting on your journey or looking to get back on track, I wrote this to be something that you can pick up, apply, and carry with you. You can find the 24 Rules of Masculinity on Amazon and through the link in the description. I would love to hear what you guys think. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back to Chasing Masculinity. This is another installment of our Masculine Essentials series where we break down the habits, virtues, and disciplines that build real men. Today, we're talking about something that doesn't take talent or money or a degree, just courage and consistency. We're talking about showing up. As a man, we often put pressure on ourselves to have the right words or the perfect plan. But most of the time, the most powerful thing that you can offer is your presence. Whether it's showing up for your wife in the small moments, for your kids at the end of a long day, or for your brothers when they're falling apart. Being there matters a lot more than you think. In a culture that encourages men to just disappear physically, emotionally, and spiritually, just showing up has kind of become a radical act of leadership. This episode is about reclaiming that ground. We'll look at the impact of presence, the cost of absence, and why masculinity begins with a man who simply refuses to be missing. The grounding scripture for today comes from Matthew 19:26. It is one of my favorite verses. With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So let's jump in and talk about why presence, imperfect, tired, and honest, is still one of the most powerful weapons in a man's arsenal. Let's get into it. All right, let's start by talking about the hidden power of presence. So the core idea here is that showing up isn't about having the right words or actions. It's just about being there when it matters. What is the definition then of presence? It's the act of physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually being where you're needed, especially when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient for you. It's not perfection. It certainly isn't eloquence. It's just presence. Why, then, does presence matter more than this whole performance? You don't need the perfect plan or response. Presence communicates that commitment that words can't. Physical presence often means more than just these grand gestures. Think of like funerals or kids' sports games or church or family dinners or uncomfortable conversations with your partner. What matters isn't that you perform. It doesn't matter that you said the perfect speech at your friend's wedding. What matters to him most is that you were there. It doesn't matter that you have the perfect response or perfect apology prepared or you're able to perform without a flaw when you and your wife are mid-argument. What matters is that you are physically there, giving your attention, giving your presence. You can't lead from the couch. That leadership, that what it means to be a man, it requires engagement, not this sort of commentary from the sidelines. Some of my wife's favorite memories were actually times that I just simply showed up when she didn't expect it. Like when we were dating in high school and she had a school play that she was a part of, and I drove 2 hours through a snowstorm to show up. I was very late. and I had to get towed from a ditch. And if I could go back, I don't know if I would be driving through that blizzard again. But that meant more to her than a lot of the more grand gestures that I put a lot of thought into. Me just being there meant more to her than the actual play itself or than any sort of dinner or roses or whatever else I could have done. And that's because that presence, it signals love and priority and attentiveness. These moments left a deeper impact than anything I actually said or gave her. And that should be a good takeaway for all men. You need to stop underestimating the power of just showing up, especially for those who are close to you. People remember who was there. Silence and absence are also remembered, but in a different way. So that's why presence can be such a powerful tool. So when you are silent and you are absent, what happens? What happens when you fail to show up? Absence has a cost, and it's often greater than you think. It's not a zero-sum game. It is an actual subtraction from whoever you are absent to. And it compounds. So there's a compounding nature of absence. So skipping small commitments in your relationships or with your partner, it can build resentment over time. Every time you don't show up, a conversation, a dinner, a school event, you are like depositing distance into that relationship every single time. And that's going to compound drastically against your favor. There were times in my own marriage where I failed to show up in what seemed like a little thing. But those little things came back after a while and caused some real emotional hurt because all of a sudden 1 or 2 times probably isn't a big deal. And that's how I viewed it every single time, was this is just a one-time thing. But when those compound, it's no longer a one-time thing, even though that's how you're viewing it, because you're viewing it per time. But the people that you're hurting are viewing it as a repetitive behavior or repetitive patterns that compound into this monster that you now have to slay. So why is that? It's because what men sometimes consider as small things can actually feel massive to the people that they love. And that's just us misjudging that significance. We rationalize it by saying it's not a big deal. But when your absence sends a louder message than you think, especially when it becomes a sort of pattern, that is us misjudging that significance. That is that compounding of absence. And there's going to be some unforeseen consequences, like kids growing up with those emotional gaps, or wives feeling unloved and unseen, or your friends could just stop inviting you to places. You could stop getting the monthly golf invite, or you could stop getting the yearly hangout with the group of friends. Or churches, they could lose your influence or your presence or your growth. What you're getting out of your presence could actually be diminished from your absence over time. And you can't outsource your presence either. There's no gift, there's no apology, there's no message that really makes up for you not being there, especially in leadership and family and faith. Only your presence can fill that role that God gave you. And there's a sort of masculine philosophy about that presence. Showing up, it's not optional for a man. It's a duty and defining trait of masculinity. Presence equals leadership. You don't have to have every answer. You don't even have to have an answer. You just have to be present. Presence declares, I'm available, I'm committed, I'm responsible, even if you don't feel like it, or you aren't. There's a cultural attack on masculine presence. Emotionally, men are told to keep quiet and to suppress feelings and to kind of stay in your lane, which is weird because it coincides with everybody freaking out about men's emotional health and saying how we need to talk about our emotions more, which I don't think really gets at the issue. I don't think talking about our emotions and being super in tune with our identities is really the fix to all of this. But there certainly has been some emotional suppression that has been put on men. So there's a weird balance trying to navigate how to fix that issue without feminizing it. But beyond that, there's also a physical attack on masculine presence. So culture celebrates that isolation. There's that digital escape, or there's that passivity in life. If you are a passive male, you are not a threat. Therefore, maybe it's not celebrated, but it's certainly accepted. People don't like strong men. Culture doesn't want strong, outspoken men. And there's also a spiritual attack on masculine presence. So men are discouraged or disengaged in church and prayer and spiritual leadership. I think you'll find that there's a lot more women's groups in churches than there are men's groups. And that's just because physical presence isn't deemed as necessary for men, even though it arguably is. Presence is a resistance too. So in a fatherless, disengaged generation, simply showing up is actually a rebellious act of leadership. So you are going against the culture. You are countercultural if you are practicing presence. Just being there consistently makes you a model of stability in this chaotic world. God's model is presence. He walked with Adam. He dwelt among Israel. He came as Jesus. Emmanuel means God is with us. So, as his image bearers, God created man in his image. Men must reflect this through their own steadfast presence. And it's hard to be there when it's inconvenient. But true masculinity does not wait for that ease of comfort. Men show up in pain, in uncertainty, in busyness, and they are still able to lead. That is the call and the burden of being a man. Presence is also preparation. So when you're consistently in the small things, you're going to be ready for the big one. You are preparing yourself. So presence is a form of discipline. You're building up your strength and your preparedness over time. And God honors this consistency. The Bible doesn't celebrate flash. It celebrates faithfulness. Think of Peter's redemption story. He failed to show up for Jesus at the cross. He denied him 3 times out of that fear and shame, but he came back. In Acts, he became the bold voice of the early church. God doesn't just cancel men who fall. He uses them to return and stay. And there's also Noah and his very long obedience. He showed up every day for decades to build an ark in a land that really hasn't seen the rain, especially not what he was prophesizing. But that faith, it looked foolish until the flood came. His consistency saved generations. Well, I mean, it literally saved mankind. As Joseph in Egypt, he was betrayed by his brothers. He was imprisoned unjustly. But he kept showing up, serving, interpreting dreams, and then eventually leading, even while he was still in chains. God used that consistency to elevate him to second in command over Egypt, which again saved the Israel lineage. That spiritual consistency can be used as masculine leadership. You can't lead your home, your wife, your kids, your community if you vanish when things get a little bit difficult. Men show up in weakness. That's where masculinity is going to become apparent, in the silence, in the failure. And it's because their strength comes from God. Going back to Matthew 19:26, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So even showing up again after failure, you're showing up again and again, and you're just being present. That is when your strength is spirit-fueled. The takeaway from all that is the men that God used aren't the flashiest or the loudest, but they are the ones who kept returning to do the work, even when it's slow or hard or unseen. That's presence. So, what are some practical habits for just showing up? The idea here is that, we've talked about it before, motivation fades. The systems that you build and the discipline that you create is what keeps you faithful. So discipline is greater than motivation. Don't rely on feeling like it. Rely on the structure. The world respects consistent men because they're rare. Build systems that make present habitual. So use calendars, schedule time for walks with your wife or with your kids or church. Set alarms for daily discipline, whether that be prayer, workouts, check-ins. Establish a rhythm, morning routines, evening reflection, Sunday planning. Have the systems preemptively put in place to make it really easy for you to just show up. And then rely on brotherhood. Let men know where you plan to show up so that they can hold you to it, and do the same for others too. If somebody is committed to something, hold them to it, hold them accountable. Your presence isn't supposed to be perfect, it's just persistent. You won't always say the right thing. You're definitely not always going to be full of energy, but just having your body in the room matters more than whatever perfect execution you are thinking in your mind. So you can have two simple goals. One, just be there. That's it. That's your first win. Then the second goal can be to level that up. You can learn to be more attentive, to be more engaged, and sacrificial while you're there. But you have to be there first. This perfect idea of this man that you want to be, that starts with you being in the room that you want to be this perfect man. If you want to be this outgoing, outspoken, somebody who's able to naturally command the presence of the room, but you're just an introvert who's never put themselves in that situation, the very first thing that you need to do is actually be in the room that you're envisioning yourself being that person. Because without that, everything else that cascades, everything else that follows can't happen. So there is a checklist of presence. 1, make sure that you're showing up for your partner, especially when it seems small or unimportant. Then try to be at your families. Like if you have kids, be at their meals and pickups and practices, bedtime routines. Be present with whatever your family is. Maybe that's just your roommate, but be present, be intentional. And then don't flake on things like men's groups or other commitments that you've made, even when you're tired and drained. Be present in prayer and scripture too, even if it feels dry or uninspired, or you feel like you're going through the routine or you're having to force something out. Again, being present is more important than the actual act. So that's my encouragement to anybody who's lost or disconnected. If you feel like your presence doesn't matter, then you've believed a lie. To the man who feels invisible, your absence is costing people more than you know. You may not see your impact, but your absence certainly is going to leave a hole. That's that cultural lie, is that you're not needed. Everybody's so independent, they're doing their own thing. You can live a life online in complete isolation. No, that's a lie. The reality is men are starving for your presence, your partner, your kids, coworkers, your roommates, your church, whatever community you have. They all feel when you're missing. So that tough love meets practical action. So buck up, be a man. We've heard that. Yeah, but not in isolation. Start with one act of showing up. Go to the things that you're tempted to skip, the things you really want to back out of last minute. Sit in the moment for 5 minutes or longer in the room that you really don't want to leave. Man, I'm at this work conference and I could just kind of slip out the back and go back to my hotel room or what have you. I don't need to be at this one meeting, but just live in that moment. Have your presence be known. Let people see that you're willing to be present. That presence breeds identity. So the more you show up, the more you become that man that you're trying to be. Whereas that absence is going to chip away at your integrity and it's going to make you a stranger to yourself. You don't have to fix it all today. You don't have to become this perfect model today. You just have to show up. Don't overthink it. Just get in that room. Take that first rep. That's how momentum builds. So think about, where in my own life am I absent right now? And then also, who is being hurt by my silence or my distance or my inconsistency? What have I told myself that's no big deal, but it really does matter to somebody else? And then pick one place that you have been inconsistent or absent. Maybe it's just a dinner with your family, or calling your mom, or church, or Bible study, or it could just be your attitude at work or in the gym. Just show up this week. Don't make excuses. Just show up. You don't have to have a plan. You just have to pull into the parking lot and then walk into the building. Set a reminder too. Make it a priority. Be there on purpose. That's something that is key to masculinity, is doing things with intention. So be there on purpose. Have that intention. And then you can also call other men to action. So encourage your brother to step up where he's been quiet or absent. Text him, invite him, ask him how he's showing up this week. The truth is, showing up is not flashy. It does not get an applause. It's not going to give you any sort of praise that gives you a sense of progress. But in your home, in your marriage, in your faith, your presence matters more than your words. It's going to build legacies. It's going to build trust. It's going to build men. Weak men vanish when it gets hard, but strong men show up anyway. So find that one place you've been absent and just be there, fully, physically, consistently. Show up for your family, your brothers, and your God. And if you know another man who's been on the sidelines, just call him in. Don't let him disappear. Don't let him slip away into isolation. So until next time, guys, keep becoming a man of consistency, presence, and purpose, and keep chasing masculinity.